Does Marvel care about sales? There's a lot of people who say no, that they don't care about sales. That kind of ideology is running the show, and that's why you see certain creators that are failures, or comics that aren't selling well get renewed or rebooted. And so there's almost a desire to do anti-sales. It's like the negative zone of sales. But that doesn't quite wash. And Marvel definitely does care about sales. It's just maybe the way they're looking at it is a bit unusual. So let's talk about that. Hey everybody, this is Perch. It's one of these statements that gets thrown out like Marvel doesn't care about sales, and I never like it because it's too broad, it's too general, and also you can't see into their heads or their hearts, so it doesn't make a lot of sense. I know the big YouTubers certainly go on and on about Marvel is anti-sales and everything else, but again, they're dissolving the issue to too much of a basic point. Marvel definitely cares about sales. And I can tell you this from a retailer perspective, and any retailer will tell you this. The fact that Marvel's trying to crowd out the shelf space means they care about sales. That's their sales strategy. They're trying to kind of wipe out their competition this way. Why would they wipe out their competition? Because they want the sales. The fact that they're doing the variant cover schemes and all the rest, that's their way of getting sales. That's their belief that that's the strategy that will win the day. And the counter argument is, well, wait a minute. Then, if that's true, why do you take a Jeremy Whitley, for example, who has a title that has never sold particularly well? By the way, whenever I mention him, and there's a couple others, I'll mention them and they'll get the downvotes of like, how dare you insult Whitley? And it's I'm not insulting Whitley. I'm talking about sales. Like if you look at his numbers for comics in comparison to Donny Cates, for example, he has less. It's nothing against him. I'm sure they're both lovely people, but the actual numbers of the sales are significantly different. So the argument goes that I hear is, well, why would they keep giving Whitley more titles when he doesn't sell? And the answer to that is actually fairly simple. It's like, well, one, there's a belief that if they just give him the right project, he will sell. That's number one. I mean, so case in point, Al Ewing, another name when I mention always gets people pissed off. Both directions, weirdly enough. It's Al Ewing is a no-win situation for everyone. But he did a lot of titles that got canceled, that didn't sell. I mean, there are jokes within the industry, not from fans, but actually of other creators that say, what's the fastest way to trim your line? Put Al Ewing on the books, because he would go on the books and then they would early cancellation was kind of the thing with him. And so Marvel kept fishing around giving him other books. He landed on the Immortal Hulk. It was the right style at the right time for the right character. Sales were good, brought the Hulk into a more top-selling book, which it hadn't been in a long time, and it works. So that's why they keep giving these creators books, is because they believe that the right project, they just put the right project with the right person, the right time, it will work. That's reason number one. Reason number two is that, there's a network. There's editors who feel comfortable, like the person's style. Maybe the guy delivers on time consistently, doesn't cause a lot of noise or chaos. Maybe the person is very reliable. That sounds like, lots of people are reliable. Actually, to the contrary, if there's one thing that's very true about the comic book industry, it's that a lot of people are not reliable. And so the idea that you could have a creator that you can just count on is going to go a long way. It's why I give the advice to people: if you want to work in comics, be consistent. Just get to the point where you can produce, and then come back and produce some more, and just be very, very consistent with what you do. That's how you succeed. Sorry, I had a brief break there, but the other factor is that as an editor or as a team, you don't have unlimited money to play with. So what you do is you're like, okay, I'm going to manage, say, 10 books. This is just an example. I'm going to manage 10 books. I've got a budget of $10,000. I can basically have one book have superstar creators on it, and then 9 books with the cheapest possible labor I can find in South America, or I can spread this stuff out. And these are the kind of decisions that are being made by editors and by groups at Marvel and DC and everywhere all the time. It's like, I've got this budget, I want to produce this amount of books. Now, if your sales strategy, if your attempt to win the market is to flood the shelves, that means that your 10,000 has to stretch across 15 books, not 10. And so that's going to, put some handcuffs on what you do. It's why, they don't go out and they say, we're going to put, Chris Claremont on this book, and we're going to rehire John Byrne, and we're going to get Art Adams to do this one and J. Scott Campbell to be over here. It's why they do what they do. It's why they have a superstar artist on the cover, why they push a lot of variants, because that's how the money kind of rolls for orders, and why they have cheaper artists in the interior. It's why you see creators that are maybe not the top selling creators get second, third, fifth, 18th chances, because they are consistent, reliable, and cheaper. And in this case, I mean, cheaper often, people look at that negatively, like cheaper equals worse. And sometimes it's true. But in this case, it's more of just a business reality. Cheaper means cheaper. If you are spending less money on comics, you're able to produce more comics, you're doing your job, because that is how Marvel has defined the editor's job, amongst many other things, of course. But that's basically the game that's being played. Nowhere into anything I just said factors in the idea that Marvel's deliberately trying to put out books that won't sell. Of course, they want these books to sell. If Marvel would be really happy if Future Foundation or World of Wakanda had sold 100,000 plus comics, they would be happy. They're not deliberately trying to tank it. But at the same time, Marvel's not stupid either. They know that Future Foundation is probably not going to sell 100,000 copies. So they're going to do less marketing behind it. They're going to do less pushing behind it. And they're going to kind of see where it settles in the market. They're going to hope it gets to trade. And then they can kind of take it from there. Unfortunately, by not doing the marketing, not putting the money into it, they kind of, they get the conclusion that they pay for. So by not putting the extra effort into it, they're basically ensuring the result that comes out the other end. And that's kind of the problem of where the comic book goes. I think I get why people say this. I get why people believe, hey, they don't care about profits because they're putting out these comics that I hate, or these comics that don't sell well. Nobody in their right mind would put out comics that don't sell well. Unless, as I've just described, the business model is played in such a way that through collections, through subsidies, through managing these properties in such a way, you are able to turn a profit, maybe a small profit, but a profit with this system. And that's where things have landed. So it feels like kind of a sad answer in a lot of ways, that you work so hard to get to the industry that you love, and you're excited to do the book that you always wanted to do, and then this is the result that you get. That seems like a bad outcome for a lot of people, but it is the reality of the business. It is how this stuff ultimately rolls out, and like any job that I'm sure you have, or your friends have, or brothers, sisters, whatever, there's lots of things in that job that don't necessarily make sense, but it's how the numbers all break down. Having said all of that, this isn't the way I would manage the business. And maybe I'd be a fool, maybe I'd run the company out of money, but I think with the current climate of needing entertainment, of comics, of having so many of these major characters on the big screen, so much attention, so much value in this IP, I would be taking a different strategy of at least having a core set of books. And when I say core, I mean 40 to 60% of the books with top talent, trying to aim for that 100,000 above number. I think it is possible. Now, it does mean you need to spend more money. It also means you need to cut your line. I think if there was ever a time when Marvel had the strength, for example, to not flood the shelves, where they could actually go with books, now would be that moment. Or maybe even better, 2 years ago would have been that moment, because the movies are boosting for them. People walking into a comic shop who are excited about the Avengers are going to want to go right to the Avengers. You don't need to crowd the shelf out to prevent them from seeing Batman, Superman, Aquaman. You just need to lead with your best stuff and gain those readers, those customers that are going to be with you for decades. But I will tell you, I've had fierce arguments with editors and publishers and others on this topic who say that what I just described is a failing business strategy and it wouldn't work. And they may be right. I'll acknowledge that. It's just, I think that it's gone too far into I call it Moneyball approach of doing comics that I think is ultimately self defeating. I think it erodes the future and the upside of where comics should go. I think we're playing it so safe that there is no upside. That's my view on it anyway. What do you think? What do you think about this? Are you one of the people who believes that Marvel is deliberately trying to lose money? Let me know in the comments below. Did anything I say change your mind a little bit? Was it new? Love to know that too. Otherwise, like, subscribe, recommend to a friend if you don't mind, and thanks for listening.